last I checked, we just checked it together, there are over 48,000 daily user accounts that are active right now. So this is one of the biggest games in the Web3 space. It's been around for over 5 years and it's growing fast. It's extremely popular. Now, do you want to give an elevator pitch or like a brief overview of Splinterlands?
Yeah, I mean, so the high level, you kind of said like Magic the Gathering on the blockchain. And I think it's actually more similar to physical games like Magic and Pokemon than the digital games like the Hearthstones, because of the ownership and the trading and the secondary markets and all that stuff. And so it is similar in concept to all the other trading card games you might know, where you buy packs of cards, you get the different cards, you can trade them, you can buy them, you can sell them, and you use them to battle against other players. In this case, however, there's like a couple of things that I didn't really like so much about the more traditional games, Magic and Hearthstone and all that. Like, I'm a big deck builder, and the reality with those games is you kind of have to be competitive. You have to go online and just look up what the best decks are, net decking as it's called, and then you basically just play those over and over and over. And I was always the type who wanted to come up with my own decks and different card combinations and different ideas. But I would never really be competitive. There's no way I could come up with something that was going to be better than all of the internet put together. So I had this idea, again, many, many years ago. It'd be really cool if there was a trading card game where the rules change every match. So you wouldn't have a deck that you pre-build and you go in with, because the whole idea is to know each card and be able to pick which ones to use on the fly based on these kind of random rule sets that come into the game. And it's things like, maybe healing can't be used in these certain matches, or only certain types of cards can be used, or there's all sorts of different scenarios. So that's what Splinterlands is. So there's no going online and just saying this is the best deck that I'll play, or these are the few best decks. It's really a game of on the fly thinking, and the players who both own the widest variety of cards and who really know what cards to use in what situations and how to pair them together and all that stuff are going to win. And on top of that, the battles, it's an auto battler, right? So you do this, you get paired with an opponent, you get these random rules and other parameters. Then you have 2 minutes on the fly to pick your team, we call it. You put them on the battlefield, and then the battle plays out automatically from that point. So it's really how much do you understand the different rules and the mechanics, and how do you pick and place your cards. But the whole thing, takes a few minutes. It's a really interesting game concept, in my opinion. It's a concept I came up with having nothing to do with blockchain. But then when you add the blockchain and the asset ownership into it, that's where the real fireworks come in. Now we're able to combine both worlds: digital, online entertainment, which has tremendous advantages over physical games, combined with that ability to actually build up assets and build up value over the long term. So we're trying to combine both of those value propositions together here. A really fun, engaging product that includes the whole economic aspect of it with that long-term value creation that comes with digital asset ownership.
It's all about ownership. You actually own your assets. And that's what was cool about Magic the Gathering. You owned that card. You had it in your hand. And with digital games these days, a lot of times you don't own any of the digital assets yourselves. And that's where blockchain tech really shines, I think. And so many ways to play and strategize. Like, even if you just want to be an owner in the game and profit, you can do that by getting game assets, get your collections, get your deck, get your cards, and you can actually rent them out. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a big part of the game. And we've had for a really long time, and also working over the years to figure out that system and make it work as easily and as smoothly as possible. I think we have over 1 million cards, I think, that are actively rented out at any given time.
Wow.
And so that's something. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players, who just don't have the time to sit there and spend playing, right? Or they buy more cards than they themselves can use, or whatever it is. So yeah, we have a very active rental market. You can put them out, and they're, a lot of them will be even like sub 1 cent a day or something. Again, like the higher level cards and the more rare cards obviously go for much more. But in order for people to, play the game, you're going to need like hundreds of cards usually. So that adds up. So it gets to the point where, you know, we have players, especially in different parts of the world, who don't have enough money to actually buy all the cards that they need for themselves. It can get expensive, so they rent them, right? And you can spend, you know, a few dollars a day or whatever it is renting your collection of cards. And if you're a skilled player, you can, you know, parlay those rented cards into more than a few dollars a day via the ranked play and the tournaments and everything. So it's an opportunity for people who don't have as much money to sink into the game. And while they're doing that, they also earn cards and they're building up their own collection of valuable assets at the same time. And then it allows players who just want it as more of like a passive investment thing, to not only, you know, be able to hold on to their assets as they hope the value appreciates over time, but also have like a passive income stream on top of it.
And that's what my one friend did, who's made over 6 figures in Splinterlands. I asked him, like, how did you make so much money playing Splinterlands? He's like, well, I've been playing this game since it started because I love it. And I have just been building my collections, my cards, my game assets. I'm putting all of those things to work in the ecosystem. So he has like all these assets. And yes, he's trading them and doing things like that, but he's just amassing these digital assets that are becoming more and more valuable over time. And he's also putting them to work in the game to make more assets.
You know, one of the things we set up, there's the Splintershards token you mentioned. That's the governance token and the earning token in the system. So as you play, the better you do, the more of SPS you're going to earn, and you stake it. And that's, you know, the more you stake, the more you get. And also that gives you your voting power in the DAO. That does actually have like significant, you know, there's like many proposals that happen kind of on a regular basis that you can actually be a part of and change kind of the course of how things go. But then the DEC token is actually our in-game, you know, sort of stable coin. I say sort of stable coin in that it's backed by Splinterlands products. So what that means is that all of the products in Splinterlands that you can buy, you can purchase for fixed amounts of DEC tokens or the equivalent amount of dollars. So a pack right now in the game would cost $4, and you could pay with actual dollars using PayPal or Bitcoin or ETH, $4 per pack, or 4,000 dark energy crystals. So it's 1,000 dark energy crystals per dollar. But the thing is, even if the value of dark energy crystals falls on the market, and when you showed the price, it was like, you know, 0.95. So it's a little below that, right? So there's an opportunity. There's a little bit of an arbitrage opportunity. If you want to buy packs, you could pay $4, or you could get it like 5 cents on the dollar cheaper if you purchase it with 4,000 dark energy crystals. And then you can just burn SPS tokens and mint more DEC. So that's another arbitrage opportunity. If there's extra demand for DEC, people who own SPS tokens, or people can just go buy SPS tokens and burn $1 worth of SPS tokens for 1,000 DEC. New DEC is minted. That keeps the price again stable, and all the value essentially goes into SPS. So it's really, the game is set up in such a way where pretty much all of the value from everything that's purchased, whether it's you know, card packs or cards on the market, or, you know, there's a bunch of different things in the game. All that value eventually goes into the SPS token through this kind of mechanism. And there's opportunities for the arbitragers and the traders, you know, but for like the regular people, you know, they're not going to care about like a little few percent here and there. And then on our markets, everything is priced in DEC also. The tokenomics all work to benefit the people who get and hold SPS, because all that value ultimately goes to the SPS token.
Look at this, $7.2 million in tournament prizes awarded. I keep coming to the screen just to show people, look at how much money has been paid out to players in this game just from tournaments.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
The tournament feature is actually pretty cool. So the DAO is the main sponsor of tournaments, right? And the, you know, token holders basically like vote on the details of that. And that's one of the like reward pools of SPS inflation goes toward that. But also it's an open system where anyone can create a tournament and they can put up whatever they want as prizes. So it's like, it's another opportunity when we have like more marketing focus, is like we've had like other crypto or blockchain platforms or even non-crypto platforms come and just make Splinterlands tournaments and put up their own tokens or their own stuff as prizes as a way of just marketing to our user base.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, and from our user base's perspective, it's just more value to the cards, right? If you have cards and you're good at Splinterlands, you can play in these tournaments. There's more stuff you can win. And then some of them, they can even have like entry requirements, like you need to sign up for something or whatever they want, really. So it's just a really cool like cross promotional tool that gives more prizes and more value to Splinterlands assets.
I think that's a great idea. You've got such an active user base that is tech savvy. And I think for marketing purposes, that tournament system there is a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah.
I don't really know any other GameFi games right now that are this exciting to me in terms of actual gameplay. That's me saying a lot to you, Matt. That's a huge compliment.
I appreciate it.
By the way, I don't just say that to anybody out here. I've interviewed a bunch of GameFi developers, and most of them don't even have anything to show yet. Whereas you're coming in here locked and loaded with an amazing game. You got me excited. The green tea and the coffee are hitting me hard. You got me bullish, Matt. You did a good job here. And I think anybody who watches this whole thing is probably pretty excited about Splinterlands if they're not already. It's incredible that what you've done on HIVE blockchain, by the way, with like already proof of millions of transactions per day just for Splinterlands on HIVE blockchain. So, and gas free. The user, the player pays $0 in gas fees because you guys are staking a whole bunch of HIVE tokens to generate the HIVE power or whatever that the players would use in the game, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. Right. And some of the games in that position, they just take a lot of the stuff off chain, right? To avoid the gas fees. I'm like, well, that defeats the whole purpose, right? It's like, yes, okay, the NFTs are on chain and the tokens, but then you just have a centralized game. But we have everything on chain. That's why there's so many transactions. And this is the only way we could do that.
That's brilliant. So you guys really have like led the way here in terms of fully decentralized gaming. I really haven't heard of a solution as well rounded as this and as robust in actual production, in a live production environment like you guys with this many transactions. Like you just said, you have more transactions than the entire Ethereum blockchain in a given day, potentially just from your game.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me that you haven't done marketing before and it's already this huge. I mean, this is one of the biggest games out here, and that's just a testament, I think, to how good Splinterlands as a game is, that you guys haven't done marketing yet, and you have 50,000 daily users, and I think over 800,000 daily transactions, which is nuts. Do you want to put that in perspective for people?
Yeah, so that's transactions on the blockchain. But around 800,000 a day on average right now. Back in the middle of the bull run, it was something like 3 or 4 million blockchain transactions a day from Splinterlands, and that's roughly the same, if not more, than like the entire Ethereum blockchain does in a day.
Transactions by Splinterlands right here, about 800,000 daily transactions on average, and you said that's more than the daily average transactions on the entire Ethereum blockchain. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked up the exact numbers, but it's at least roughly in the same ballpark.
That's wild. And you can see here the daily average active accounts, 48,000 right now. It's a huge game. The market cap, like 50 million US dollars.
I feel like right now the focus is very blockchain centric. People, are involved in this chain or that chain, and they only want to play games on this chain or that chain. It's very important what chain it's on. But I think eventually, people won't know or won't care, right? They just want fun games, good products where they can own their assets and get all the benefits that they're looking for. It'll just be like when I watch Netflix, I'm not like, well, this is on Amazon Web Services and not, Microsoft Cloud or whatever. So I'm not using it, or like no one knows, no one cares. It's just like they get the shows they want to watch, right? And eventually, that's going to be the case, for all type of dApps. eventually. So our focus was never on like what's the most popular blockchain or the one with the most like VC money or capital behind it or any of that. It was really like what's the one that gives the best experience for our players? Like what's the one that just makes it easy and drop dead simple to use this? Because like I myself, like I'm a developer, I'm in the blockchain and crypto space, but this game was also built for like a lot of people I know who are just gamers. And they're not going to figure out how to set up MetaMask and buy ETH or whatever token to pay gas fees. So the Hive blockchain is a fork of what was originally the Steem blockchain, which is STEEM, no relation to the gaming platform STEAM. That's a fascinating story that could be a whole entire other podcast, but I'm not going to get into that now. But the point is, it was kind of like. It launched in 2016, I believe. So it was like Web3 before Web3 was a thing. And its entire focus was trying to be like a much more user-friendly, but still completely decentralized experience. And Hive, just so everyone knows, one of the things we like about it is that it is a completely community-run and owned chain. So it is one of the most decentralized blockchains that exists, as far as I know. There's no company, organization, foundation. There's no VCs. There's no pre-mines. There's no any of those pitfalls or things that so many of the other blockchains have. It's 100% community owned and operated, and it's super easy to use. It has no transaction fees. You just have to stake the token, and we, the Splinterlands team, can stake tokens in our wallet that we delegate automatically to players who come in. So you don't have to know anything about crypto. You don't have to buy any crypto. You don't have to pay gas fees. It's all kind of handled in the back end. Again, just like if I watch Netflix, I don't have to like buy Amazon Web Services credits and like figure out how to pay them for my bandwidth or whatever. Whenever I watch a video, I just pay Netflix my monthly fee, and it works. So it's the same thing here. You put money into the ecosystem generally, and you're able to use it, and it just works. Also, it has this thing called account abstraction by default. And this is sort of like a new thing that Vitalik's been talking about, and they're looking at implementing on Ethereum and other EVM chains that Hive has had for I guess 8 years now. So this is another problem that came up from like Magic and those type of cards. So we talked about like you get all these duplicate cards that you can't use, and in Splinterlands you can combine them and level them up. So that's cool. There's another problem is like Splinterlands, like all these games, we release new sets of cards on a regular basis, right? So there's still like these old, like the alpha and beta, like the old cards, and like the old cards, like the first couple sets, like those always maintain their value just as collector's items. But then there's still like, as the years go on, again, we're in year 5. Well, I guess we're on our 6th year. It is like, there's a lot like these sets in between that are just like, again, they're worthless, in a lot of these games, because you always just want the latest and greatest, and there's power creep and all this stuff. So we're like, well, how do we have a digital platform? We can do all sorts of cool things. How do we solve for this? So that's where the land expansion comes in. We're adding new types of cards to the game called item and spell cards. So right now there's the summoner and the units that we talked about. There's going to be these new item and spell cards that are going to be, again, that second battle stage after you see your opponent's team and your team, and you can like cast spells and equip item and change how the battle plays out at that point. These cards we're not going to sell. They're never going to be sold in packs. You craft them through owning land. And the workers on the land are going to be the old cards in the game. So the idea is you take all your old cards, instead of having them sit in boxes in your basement or sit in your wallet collecting virtual dust, they're your workers on your land, and they produce these new exclusive cards that you can then sell to new players coming into the game, because land is very limited. There's not a lot of it. So new players coming into the game, like they're not going to be getting into land at all for a while. They're just going to want to rent cards off the market or buy them to play the game. So all the item and spell cards that they rent or buy are going to be from people who crafted them on land using their old cards. So it's a land expansion. It's going to be a whole full-fledged like resource management, empire building type game. We're in like early stages of it now as we are building it out. But that's the whole idea, which I just think is so cool. There's like an actual economic value at the end of it. It's not just try to get to the best to show off and say what you have. Like, you will actually be creating these new assets that new players in the game will need to buy. And you use your old cards to do it. So like all the cards in the game maintain value through this system. We're building an additional game, which is also a sort of like, I don't know if it fits exactly into an existing game genre, but you know, it takes a lot of ideas from like the Clash of Clans type of thing, where you have all these different buildings that produce all these different resources. Not the fighting part of it. We already have our battling part of the game, but this is like that whole like, you know, land and resource management part. And as you put up on the screen, this is kind of our flow chart of what we're building and how it's all going to work. So it's pretty complex. There's going to be like 50 some different resources, 30 some different buildings that you'll be able to build. And each land plot will only be able to have one building on it. So players, you know, we have a lot of players who have a lot of land plots. Some people have entire regions, which are 1,000 land plots that they'll be managing. And each land plot has different rarities. It has a map of a whole continent and all the regions. And so the land plots have different rarities, and they have different like terrains, forests, mountains, lakes, whatever. They may have special magical resources that are present that you can mine. So, you know, if you have a mountainous plot, you could build a mine on it to get ores, and then you would need all these different resources to upgrade your mine to higher levels and get higher rarity ores. And then some people will build, you know, like refineries to take ores and refine them into metal bars that can then be used for things. And it's like, so this whole big system, and players will basically be building their own in-game businesses kind of. And the end product is going to be these new cards that I talked about, the item and spell cards. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom. So a lot of people may not actually produce the item and spell cards themselves, right? They may be one part of the supply chain. And I look at this like a real world supply chain thing. Like if you're, you know, buying something at the store, even like a loaf of bread, you know, there's a farmer that makes the wheat, and then there's a mill that like mills the wheat, and then there's, you know, probably, you know, they need an oven that they bake it in, and you know, the packaging and the shipping and like all these things. So it's like the same thing here. It's like this whole long supply chain process, and like players, based on what type of land they have and like their strengths and weaknesses, can like kind of pick their niche within this whole system, and they'll ultimately, like at the end of the day, whoever decides to craft the item and spell cards on their land plots will sell those in the market, and they'll get money. They'll use a portion of that to buy more of the resources they need to craft those item and spell cards from someone else who produces them. So the money kind of from those end products trickles through the system, just like the farmer, you know, making the grain isn't the one selling the bread at the grocery store, but they're getting the value from those eventual sales. So it's, you know, it's going to be a really intricate and cool system. And the whole idea also is players are going to be able to provide, we're going to have like our own internal AMM liquidity markets for this. So like you might produce these different resources, and you can just build storage buildings on your land to just store them and then put them in these liquidity markets. And every resource, there's going to be like 50 or so of them, are going to be paired against the DEC token. So that's going to be, so if like someone is like, oh, I'm producing a lot of wood, but I need stone, you know, they'll just trade it on the market, and it'll trade the wood for DEC and then the DEC for stone in one, you know, atomic transaction, with fees going to the liquidity providers. And that's how this whole like ecosystem will work. But the cool thing is that's going to be a huge new use case for DEC, right? There's going to be like massive amounts of DEC that are going to have to be paired with all of these new resources in these internal liquidity pools. And, you know, that DEC, like players are going to buy it off the market, right, at whatever price, or they can burn SPS to get it. So again, like whenever people need DEC, since it's a relatively stable token, like basically all that value goes to the SPS token. So again, like this entire ecosystem is designed for the value to go to the SPS token. And you're also going to need DEC to upgrade the building. So you'll need like wood, planks, and lumber, and metal bars, and all these things to upgrade your buildings, and DEC tokens. And you also need to stake DEC. That's like the power source that the worker cards use on your land. So like players, you know, that's already live in the game right now. Players can like put worker cards on land and earn a small subset of the resources. And they need DEC to do that. So that's been a huge use case for the token. And all the value again goes into SPS. That's a part of the reason also for the like large rise in SPS that you saw in the chart over the last few months was like this is all starting to go live. I spent so much time and so much money on all sorts of different games. And I just felt so bad about it, especially once I had like a family and everything. I was like, I shouldn't be spending this much in these games, and like I should be building businesses and or saving for retirement or whatever. And I'm like, now I can play these games and grow wealth and save for retirement, and like it's just like it's all together. I mean, that's the holy grail, I think.
It just makes it more worthwhile, and it makes gaming feel less like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at Magic the Gathering, which worked out that way. Like I have a relatively valuable collection of cards now because of the time and money I spent over the years. And I was like, that totally went away, all out the window with digital games. And that sucked. And I was so excited in 2017 when I like learned about all this stuff. I was like, I have to make a trading card game. It's like it just has to exist because I know I would like just spend tons of money and time in something like that. And there's a lot of other nerds like me out there who love this stuff.
I am so glad you came on to my channel here to talk about this. My community is going to love it. I've been looking for some really great GameFi plays to bring them. Everybody's looking for new GameFi games to play as well. Play to earn is huge. It always will be. It's going to be the biggest way to onboard new users to DeFi and blockchain technology. I still stand by that to this day. We're seeing it happen. You guys have made it seamless where somebody can come here without knowing anything about blockchain tech, without knowing anything about wallets. They can create an account and they don't even have to know that there is a blockchain involved, and they can play this game. Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we have strived to do. And, we're always working on improving that experience, but I still think it's, kind of ahead of what most of the projects in the space are. I mean, even I have trouble getting into some of the games and getting all the tokens for the gas fees and the different things that you need to do. And I'm like, if I have trouble with it as one of, the biggest DeFi degens, there's no way just regular gamers are going to do it.
I totally agree. I'm the same way. A lot of GameFi games I want to play, but the hurdle of just like bridging my assets over, eating those fees, and then figuring it all out, and then having to justify paying gas for every single game transaction, it hurts me, man. It hurts me. I can't do it. So,
100%.
You have come up with a solution for all of these different pain points in GameFi, and I think it shows by just the word of mouth success you've had over 5 years. And I think once you really pour that gasoline on the fire in terms of spreading this message about Splinterlands, this thing's just going to explode. It's tried and tested. It's incredibly fun. It can be incredibly lucrative.
Appreciate the work and the effort that you put in. So I mean, I'm sure your audience knows this, but man, like you really did the work. You didn't just come on and wing it. Like Alex spends the time here to learn what he's talking about, and I appreciate that too because I want someone who knows what they're talking about to talk to. Really get the word out there.
Thanks, I really appreciate that hard work and preparation. So that way I can bring the best information as possible to my viewers. Thanks for all the kind words. And Vonak!
Vonak!